Ciao, I'm Mary Ann Esposito. Today, ricotta cheese, 3 ways. Today I'm going to make a wonderful gnocchi dish for you that uses a sauce that comes from northern Italy with 2 key products. One is Asiago cheese, and here it is right here, a nice wedge of it. This is a cow's milk cheese that comes from the Veneto, and it has the name Asiago on the rind. That's how you know you're getting the right cheese. This is a DOP cheese, meaning that it has to be produced in a certain area. So in the Veneto, it's named for Asiago, the town from where it came, but it can also be made in Vicenza, in Padova, and in other parts of the Veneto. And then with the cheese, because that's going to be part of our sauce, we're going to flavor it with Speck. This is Speck, and this is a ham coming from northern Italy that is seasoned with various kinds of herbs. It is slightly smoked, it is salted, and it is hung to dry. So it's an aged ham. So we're going to start with cutting up some of this. So I have about, if you really want to do this precisely, a pound of speck. And if you were in northern Italy, they would call this speck. So I'm going to take about 1/4 pound of that. And you see it has this nice white line of fat, and then here are those various spices and herbs that different producers use. They can use juniper, they can use oregano, they can use pepper, salt, they can use cumin, they can use coriander, and that's what makes this an unusual product, in that each producer that makes this makes it according to what he or she likes. So we're going to cut this into small pieces, what I like to call dadini, because I only really need 1/4 pound of the speck to flavor the sauce. So you want to cut it into small pieces, really small pieces, which is why I'm telling you it's referred to as dadini. We have a tablespoon of unsalted butter in the pan, and now we're going to add the speck. We want the speck to really get a little crispier here, because with that I'm going to add some chicken broth later, and then some heavy cream. This is really a rich sauce. And then that Asiago cheese, the cow's milk cheese from the Veneto, that I've grated up. So I have 2 cups of the Asiago. So speck is something that you can do a lot of things with. You can, as I say, use it as an antipasto when it is thin sliced, or you can use it in cooking. So we have it here just a dadini, and this is going to make a really wonderful sauce for gnocchi, because most people think that gnocchi are always covered with tomato sauce, and it just isn't so. So now we're starting to really smell this. All of those herbs that have flavored the rind of this speck. Remember, I told you the salt, the pepper, the juniper, the bay leaf, the cumin, the coriander. It's an artisan product. All right, just a couple more minutes, and then we're going to lower the heat and add the chicken broth. That looks just right. You know, we're not going to really have to flavor this with too much salt and pepper, because you've got a lot of flavor on the ham to begin with. So now we're going to add 1/2 cup of chicken broth. Either chicken broth that you have made or you have bought in the grocery store. So mix in the chicken broth, and then with this we want 2 cups of cream. So we have 2 cups of heavy cream. I'm going to add that slowly. And what's going to thicken this sauce is the cheese, of course. So now what we want to do is just bring this up to the boil, just under the boil, and then we're going to add that wonderful Asiago cheese. And the cheese that I'm using is a Asiago. It's a mezzano, which means that it's been aged for about 4 to 6 months. But you can get it very young, and then it's called pressato, which means it's been pressed into a form and it's not aged very long. And then you can get it as a stagionata, which means that it is aged more, and so it's crumbly and you can grate it. But here we have the mezzano, which is just 2 cups of the 4 to 6 month aged cheese. So as soon as this comes to a boil, I'm going to add the cheese, lower the heat, cover it, and then we go on to make gnocchi. So you see how those little bubbles are starting to form at the edge of the pan? That means that we're just under the boil. So here comes the cheese. 2 cups of the grated Asiago. And this is a great cheese when you want a melting cheese as well. So we're going to just get that mixed in, and we're going to let that sit around and thicken. And that's going to be the sauce for our gnocchi. So get it well mixed in. And you just want to cook it just until it thickens a little bit. And cover it and set it aside. So you want to do the sauce first. There's an old saying in Rome, if it's Thursday, it must be gnocchi. Yes, Thursday is gnocchi day in Italy. Other places too besides Rome. But if you're in a restaurant on a Thursday, I'll bet you there's a gnocchi dish on the menu. And in Rome, it would be semolina gnocchi. In the north of Italy, it could be squash gnocchi. In Tuscany, it could be spinach and ricotta cheese gnocchi. In Naples, it could be potato gnocchi. In Sorrento, it could be potato gnocchi with mozzarella and basil. But today, I'm going to make you ricotta gnocchi with that wonderful cream sauce that we just prepared. So you want to start with some unbleached all-purpose flour on a board, or if you don't want to do this on a board, you can do it in a bowl, but we want to do it the old-fashioned way. And we want to give this a pinch of salt. So we have about 1.5 cups of flour. I don't know how much flour the ricotta cheese is going to absorb, so this is all by feel. So we just burrow down into the center of this mound of flour, which is the traditional way, of course, to make pasta. And gnocchi, by the way, the word itself means knuckle. It also means dumpling, but you would never want to call someone a gnocco because that would mean like a knucklehead. So here we have some fresh ricotta cheese, and it's been draining in a sieve over a bowl. This is a pound, 16 ounces. Now, when you get ricotta cheese, you want to make sure you get a good quality product. I like to make it many times, and you can make it by going to our website and looking at the recipe that we did for you a while back on ricotta cheese. But if you don't have time, just get a good commercial brand. So we have a pound of ricotta cheese, well drained. It's going right there in the center of the flour. And I'm just going to break it up a little bit. And then with that, we want 1 egg. So beat up 1 egg. And we're going to add that to the cheese. So just pour it over. Don't worry, it's not going to go anywhere. And if it does, it'll just wind up on your shoes. All right, so let's move that out of the way. And now we start playing with this. And I bring the flour in. I may not use all this flour, as I say. I'm going to test this to make sure that I have gnocchi that are tender, not tough. And the way to do that is to, after you have the dough pretty much together, you want to break off a few little pieces and then just have a little pot of water boiling and try a couple. Put a couple in the water. If they hold together while the water is boiling, well, then you know that you have just enough flour. If they fall apart, well, then you know that you've got to add just a little bit more flour. But this is a delicate process, so you don't want to rush this. You want to just take your time and make a ball of dough that really is going to hold together nicely. And this all comes with just experience. There's really no written recipe for this. I gave you an approximate recipe, but really it's all in the hands. So as I say, I had 1.5 cups of flour on this board. I'm pretty much going to use all of it, I think. So get it into a nice smooth ball. When you think you have enough flour, then you can use your bench knife and just move the excess flour out of the way. And always work on a wood board. So wood board gives you control. This would be very hard to do if you were working on stainless steel because it would just be too slippery. So I know as I'm working it, you see it's a little tacky. So now I can add just a little bit more of that flour and keep going until I think it's perfect. And I'll know it's perfect because it won't be sticking to my hands. Then we're going to cut this dough into ropes about the width of your finger and make those little dumplings. So when you get the dough together like this, and I think now that I have enough flour, but I'm going to test it, you want to let this rest, for about 30 minutes or so before you start to form the gnocchi. And I'm going to show you how you form them. But first, I'm going to let that sit there while I wash my hands. So here's the rested dough. It's nice and supple. It's not sticking to my hands. If it is sticking to your hands, you want to add a little bit more flour. But to really be sure that they're going to hold together in the water, you want to test one. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. Just take a little wad and just roll it into a ball. We'll just do 2. I know that they're going to hold together. So we just dump them in a little pot of boiling water. And as you can see, they are holding together beautifully. So we know that we do not want to add any more flour. So that's the trick, okay? Because so many people make these, then they go ahead and boil them all, and then they all fall apart in the water and they have to start over. So just make this a little bit of an insurance policy when you're making gnocchi. All right, so now we can go make them. All right, so you want to start with small pieces at a time. Just keep the rest off to the side and sprinkle a little flour on your board. But here you want to be careful because you don't want to add too much flour. More flour that you add to gnocchi, the tougher they become. So with a light hand and on a lightly floured board, and we know we have enough flour in the gnocchi so that they hold together, you just want to roll them. And you can make these as thin, as thick as you want them. In Sorrento, they're fairly large. I like them to be a little large too, but you know, you often see them as a first course where they're a very small serving. So you get them into ropes like this, and then, as I say, you can cut them into whatever lengths you want, small pieces. And once you have them like that, well then you can either leave them like that, and that would be the wimpy way to make a gnocchi, or you could use a gnocchi board, or you could form them on a fork, or you could use a stand cheese grater. So the choice is yours. So give them just a little flour, and we'll do a couple of each. And then with just light pressure, you roll them so that you see that indentation there? That's what you want. That's where your sauce is going to be trapped. So pretty soon you're just doing this like a dance. You know, you're just doing these and it becomes a mindful experience. And as you do them, you want to have a floured cloth ready, like this, and just place them on here. Now you can make these ahead. You can freeze them just like this, and then you can cook them when you want them. What I like to do is if I freeze them, I like to defrost them first before I put them in the water, because frozen they do bring down the temperature of the water, and I think it's better to let them come to a room temperature. So that's how to do them using a gnocchi board. However, if you didn't have one, and you can find those in any kitchen store, then you could use the old fork trick. And again, you're taking small amounts. And gnocchi are always a first course. They're always a first course. And I did tell you the variety of different kinds of gnocchi there are. I remember one year when we were filming in Umbria, we worked with some women chefs who were making prune gnocchi. So they were gnocchi that were filled with prunes. So there's so many variations of gnocchi. But remember, if it's Thursday, it must be gnocchi. So, all right, so there's our second line of dough. And here's your fork. You want to make sure your fork is kind of dipped in a little flour. And again, see? It's just that motion. And so you have that ridge on the other side. All of this is to help trap sauce. And most people know these as being covered with tomato sauce. Well, that's not a good one. We'll start over. Just a light pressure is all you really need. And these are very, very light tasting. And they don't take long to cook at all. So you keep going like this until you have a whole bunch ready to go into boiling water, boiling salted water. So we have some that we made a little ahead of time for you in addition to these. And now we're ready to cook these as our first course. So now we have boiling water that we're going to salt. And here are the gnocchi all ready to go. And I keep them on a towel like this, so then all I have to do is lift the towel and put them right in there. So now we want to wait until they come back to the boil. While we're waiting for that, remember that sauce that I made? Here it is, the Asiago and Speck sauce. It has thickened up nicely now. So we're going to put some of that in the base of a dish. This is so that when we put the gnocchi in here, they're not going to just all stick together in a naked casserole. So we need some of this sauce on the base. So put a little sauce in here. And oh, by the way, nutmeg in the sauce is also very classic. Put a little bit there since I didn't do it before. So you can mix in a little nutmeg. If you don't like nutmeg, you can leave it out. So then I have handy my little spider, because you want to take these directly from the water into the sauce. You don't want to take the pot, bring it over to the sink, dump it in a colander, because the gnocchi are just too delicate. So this is the better way to do it. And as you can see, the gnocchi are now starting to rise to the top. So with a spider, or you're using something else to get them out of the water, a slotted spoon, you want to really tap on the edge of the pot to get off all that excess water, because you don't want to dilute the sauce. See how beautiful they are? And then just put them right in there. See? And I think that this spider is a really handy tool. So you see how the indentations stayed in the gnocchi. And the last batch. Okay, now we can add more sauce right here. And I'm going to toss these with more of that grated Asiago cheese. You just want to lightly coat these. Point with any kind of pasta dishes that you don't want to overload it with sauce. I wish you were here, because they smell divine. Well, then we want to add some of that Asiago cheese, a beautiful presentation of ricotta gnocchi with a northern Italian sauce made with Speck Alto Adige and Asiago cheese. So we're still on the ricotta theme. We made those beautiful ricotta gnocchi. Now I'm going to make you a lunch that I used to have when I was a kid. I still make this because my Nonna Galasso, who was from Naples, made this every Saturday. So she started with ricotta cheese. Now she just took a clump of this, put it in a frying pan, added some olive oil, and fried it, put a little salt and pepper on it, and served it. I do it a little fancier. So first what I want to do is have a salad with this. So you can take some cherry tomatoes, just cut them up, put them in a bowl, and I'm just going to put a little bit of a vinaigrette with this, just olive oil, vinegar, salt and pepper, and some parsley or some other herb. If you want to use basil, you could use basil, tarragon. But I love this because it was just so different to have fried ricotta. And of course the ricotta she would get from the Broadway Market in Buffalo, New York, where she lived, and it was really fresh made all the time. So if you really want to make this dish sing, use fresh ricotta if you can find it. All right, so here are our cherry tomatoes, and now we're going to give these a little salt, a little speck of pepper, some flat leaf Italian parsley, a little drizzle of extra virgin olive oil, maybe about a tablespoon, and either red wine vinegar or you could use white balsamic vinegar, about a tablespoon of that. And you make that ahead of time just so it marinates and let it sit around. So you just do that and just put it to the side. And of course, this is best when it's tomato season. So that's going to sit off to the side. Now we're going to work with the ricotta. So here we have fresh ricotta cheese. As I say, she used to take it, clump it, and put it in a frying pan. I do it a little differently. I like to mold it, especially if I'm going to have company. So what I do is get myself some of these little cupcake molds, about 4 ounces. You can find these in the grocery store. And I line them with a little piece of plastic wrap. This is to help me get it out of the mold. Now I like to do this maybe a day or so ahead of time to really let the ricotta sit up. So once they're lined like that, well, then you just take this ricotta, just as it is, and you place it in the mold. Try to be neat, and press it in so that it's really filling the mold out. And this is a very filling kind of lunch, also a very nutritious kind of lunch, because you've got your protein here, you've got your vegetables, in the tomatoes, you've got your olive oil. And you could change this out. You could put olives with this if you wanted to, zucchini, anything is possible. So once you have them in the molds, then you fold those papers over to enclose it and just kind of press on it so it really fills out the mold. See? Just like that. So you can either unmold them right away now, or you can put them in the refrigerator and just do them when you want to do them. I have a little extra virgin olive oil heating up in a saute pan, and I have taken the cheese out of the little aluminum molds, unwrap them, and now you just place them right in there. Ooh, sounds of Nonna Galasso. So we just want to get these browned on both sides. And you just want to lift it up. We've got some fried bread. It's just so delicate. So then we're going to give this some pepper, some salt, because of course the cheese doesn't have much flavor unless you do something to it. And then take some of these tomatoes, put them around the plate, put them over the cheese. And Nonna Galasso's lunch with ricotta over fried bread is ready to eat. Ricotta cheese can be used for savory and sweet things. And one of the things I like to do is use it as a dessert, just a very simple dessert. And you can find these little cheese molds. You see these little plastic cheese baskets? They sell them online from cheese stores. And what you do is pack the ricotta cheese in the mold. You can refrigerate it for a while so it will set up, and then just unmold it onto the plate that you want to serve it on. Then you could add different things to it. You could put strawberries with other kinds of fruit. How about some sliced almonds that we've lightly toasted? So a few almonds, you want to use just a different kind of nut, you can. And then I like it with warm honey. So just a drizzle of warm honey over the top. And this just makes a really elegant, simple little dessert. Didn't take you any effort to put it together, and it's really good for you. So there you have it. 3 wonderful recipes using ricotta cheese. Never pass up ricotta cheese because you never know what you can do with it. Today we made ricotta gnocchi, light, fluffy pillows of dough that we then tossed in a cream sauce that was made with Asiago cheese and Speck Alto Adige, that wonderful ham from northern Italy. And then we made fried ricotta over fried bread, a Nonna Galasso favorite, served with a tomato salad. Always brings back those fond memories. And ricotta is great for dessert too. Here all we did was mold it and then served it with some sliced almonds that have been toasted and a little warm honey. So there you have it. And until I see you nella cucina again, I'm Mary Ann Esposito. Ciao!